So the launch of Starliner has been delayed yet again. Now we wait until no earlier than May 10th. And I haven't seen this much FUD and negativity around a launch of astronauts in a while. We'll talk about that in a second and all of the drama going on with Starliner. But first, let's talk about why it scrubbed. This happened during the final hours before this long-awaited launch, and astronauts were aboard Boeing's Starliner capsule, this being the first crewed mission of the new spacecraft. But the mission was scrubbed about 2 hours before the countdown clock hit 0. And why did this happen? Of course, an issue with the valves. It's always those dang valves. This was an issue with a valve on the Atlas V rocket, the workhorse vehicle built in Alabama by ULA, and this will carry the Starliner capsule to space. This valve issue is located on the Atlas V rocket's second stage, or the upper portion of the vehicle that's attached to the Starliner spacecraft. According to Tori Bruno, valves can sometimes get into a position where they start to buzz by opening and closing rapidly. Some buzzing is okay, but too much could cause the valve to fail, and engineers need to determine now whether the component opened and closed enough to cause concern. So officials are evaluating the issue and determining whether the valve needs to be replaced and the rocket needs to be rolled back off the launch pad. But there's so much negativity surrounding Starliner, and this would be another option for a capsule. Right now we have the faithful SpaceX Crew Dragon, and Starliner would give us a secondary option for a capsule to transport astronauts to and from the ISS. So why is this situation so negative? Of course, not everyone's being negative, but there has been some interesting discussion on X, which I wanted to go through with Joe Tegmeyer and ask for his opinion on these issues that we're seeing. So enjoy this part of our live stream. Here we are, and I'm not alone this time. I'm joined by Joe Tegmeyer, and we were thinking today that we would be able to talk about the Starliner, but obviously that has been postponed, and it wasn't necessarily an issue with Starliner, although we'll get into that, but it sounds like the next launch attempt will be no earlier than May 10th. So, the wait continues. It's been a longer wait than we thought it would be, just in general for Starliner. There's a lot of, I think, a lot of FUD that comes along with Starliner, unfortunately, because that's not great considering there's crew on board. But we'll talk about that. And I was telling Joe, I want to get into some discussion that I saw yesterday on X that I thought was really interesting here. So I'm going to share the screen and show you what I'm talking about. So Eric Berger, who I just interviewed for Ellie in Space, shared an article saying the surprise is not that Boeing lost commercial crew, but that it finished at all. The structural inefficiency was a huge deal. So he shared this article, obviously with kind of a negative tone about Starliner. Dr. Chris Combs, who I've also interviewed, he does a wind tunnel down in San Antonio, said predictably on what should be a big day for NASA, Boeing commercial crew, etc. Eric Berger, Elon's #1 fan, drops a piece gleefully documenting the shortcomings of the Starliner program. Instead of declaring Boeing lost the commercial crew program to SpaceX, why not focus on the fact that we will hopefully soon be able to say the US has not one, but 2 commercial crew delivery platforms. There are 6 contracted Starliner missions, by the way. It's not like Boeing is getting cut out after today. So he thought that Eric had a negative tone. And to put this all into perspective, Elon comments later saying the world doesn't need another capsule. What matters is fully reusable rockets and spacecraft. So some people were wondering, what drama was I talking about yesterday? There were a few instances of drama, but this one, I just feel like, people are so split. Some people are just really excited about it. Other people maybe are maybe a little bit more realistic. So let's talk about it, because there's definitely a lot of opinions about Starliner, and, we have a couple more days until it officially launches.
Well, thanks for having me on the channel. It's been a while, and you were over in Japan for a long time, and a lot of stuff has happened in between. And, so there's a lot going on with space. This is one of them, probably the most, I don't know, current one. And it is good to talk about. All of these comments, the timing for the article, what Chris is saying, what Elon said, and all that, I think maybe if we just take a step back and maybe think about timing of all this may not have been the best, but maybe there's other context or maybe a different way of thinking about all these things. First of all, uh, the Starliner program, whether you love it or hate it, is a important program to have. And it's going to be another way for us to take astronauts to the ISS, maybe other missions in the future, depends on how things go. But this is a very important mission for NASA. It's a very important mission for the space program for the United States. And it's obviously got a lot of importance for Boeing to be able to demonstrate that they can, launch successfully and be able to provide that service. So it's not unexpected to me that there was, some issues yesterday, and they were very, I don't know, cautious on their approach. So I don't really look at this and say this is a big failure or anything like that. I think it's just they're being extremely cautious. They know that the stakes are quite high, and they want to make sure it works out, correctly.
And let's also make sure that we talk about, why they scrubbed. And here's a post. Can you guys see it? The screen change. Oh, wait, no, you can't see it. Sorry. I'm doing too many things at once.
Okay.
Jenny Hotman, who takes photos of down there in the Cape, says yesterday, NASA, Boeing, and ULA scrubbed the launch of Starliner crew flight test due to a faulty oxygen relief valve observation on the rocket, actually, the Centaur second stage. So that surprised a lot of people, including Scott Manley, who posted as well, this is usually so reliable, this rocket. So that was also a bit surprising. Some people I've even say it's a cover up for an issue with Starliner. So there's just like so much negative attention on this entire thing.
Yeah, well, I think, hearing that there was an oxygen relief valve and there was a problem with that is kind of putting together multiple different valve issues that we've seen in the past. One of them had to do with some of the rockets themselves for the Starliner about a year or so ago, where they were having problems with the valve for their thrusters, and that caused a huge delay. We also see that with the Orion spacecraft, which is different than this, there were some valve issues that were in, and then we see this valve issue. So I think maybe people may be conflating all of that together, but in this particular case, it has to do with the Atlas V. And, it's a good friend of mine who's been with the SpaceX program for a very long time, and Chinnery would talk about valves are extremely important for rockets in general, and they can be extremely complex, and they can actually have failures like this, or at least they don't work in the expected manner, which is what it sounds like to me in this case.
So what do mugshot look, sealed records, and inmates searcher have in common? Well, for some reason, these sites had information, personal information on me, and right now it is in the process of being removed. By the way, I don't have a record. I was never an inmate, and I certainly don't have a mugshot. But this is just a perfect example of why you should sign up for Delete Me. Not only do I not want certain information about myself on the internet, personal information like where I live and my marital status, but I also don't want inaccurate information like saying that I've ever had a record, a mugshot, or have been an inmate. So let's just scrub away all of that information with Delete Me. I signed up for Delete Me in February, and they've actually just completed my second report, which is good because they're diligent in checking on things again over time. So on this second report, we can see that 62 data brokers were found having my personal info, and 62 listings were removed, with over 4,900 total listings reviewed. So those 62 listings are actually removals in progress. 3 of those are repeat listings, with 50 new listings and 60 that are clean. So here's how it works. Delete Me submits removals from data brokers which they find your information on. The privacy report you get shows each of the data brokers they've scanned, what they found, and what they're doing to remove the data. After they've submitted each opt-out, the privacy advisors go back and check each source again, and that's why I have the second report that has come out this month to make sure that my information has actually been removed. Some Some of these listings will be gone more quickly than others, as slower data brokers can take weeks to honor requests. And even after some removals are complete, Google can take additional time to remove results from its search cache. You'll also find, searching yourself, that a lot of your relatives may be linked to you, and maybe they're interested in scrubbing this personal information as well, which is why a family plan can be beneficial. Now, after this most recent report, Delete Me will do an additional 2 reports on me this year, which is great because I don't have to do anything and they're taking care of my business so that it's not everyone's business. I trust Delete Me, and I feel more secure knowing that my personal information won't be subjected to threats of harassment, identity theft, and even stalking. So if you're interested in this, you can get 20% off Delete Me US consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/Ellie20 and use my promo code Ellie20 at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Ellie20, code Ellie20.
Well, that's what Tom Mueller was also saying. He's those dang valves are like always the root cause of some problem. So valves are very, very important. And you'll be seeing my part 2, the tour with Tom of Impulse Space, pretty soon here.
Right. And I don't know if he got into it, but part of the reason why valves are so difficult is that they have to work in such a huge, wide-ranging environment. Sometimes they have cryogenics going through, and then sometimes they're at room temperature. They have different kinds of materials that are flowing through there. It could be gaseous oxygen. It could be liquid oxygen in this case. So valves have to do a lot, and it's very easy for them to have issues.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, okay, so there's Tori Bruno. A lot of these videos I hadn't seen from yesterday, and I think playing a little B-roll is interesting here. But, you know, as far as May 10th, I guess we'll have to see how the weather is. Do you think that, you know, this is going to be another long delay, or do you think this next attempt could be actually successful?
I don't know, because since this is in the rocket itself, they're going to have to get into the rocket, take a look at it, whether that can be done on the pad, or is it going to require a rollback, is going to be something that I think they're going to be looking at right now. It sounds like it's on the rocket, not the ground support facilities themselves. So that may or may not make it an easier fix. But I think that they want to not only take a look at it, but I think they're going to want to try to see if they can duplicate the problem, identify what that is, and then figure out, do they have to replace it, or can they just do a different procedure and then move on? So, you know, it could take just today and then they'll figure it out, or it could take a lot longer. I know that sounds kind of like a wishy-washy answer, but it is true with with rocket systems like this. I am hoping that sometime this weekend will work out. And as you mentioned, the weather, one of the good things about the flexibility for this mission is that the ISS has already relocated the Dragon capsule. The port is open. I think it has a few months of opportunity as far as the port. So, they will have some time to work through this and then pick the time that's right, rather than, if they don't get it by May 15th, it's over, that kind of thing. So,
Right.
So I think that, especially with the stakes of this particular mission, they're going to take their time to make sure that they can duplicate it, understand it, and then be able to be sure that this is going to work. And rockets have thousands of different parts and systems as well. So they may get this fixed and something else may pop up as well. We'll just have to see how this goes.
Well, and I feel like the issue continues to, compound because people are very critical of Boeing in general right now. And so, talking to a friend who's not as familiar with the space industry, it's like, well, it's Boeing. So, I mean, it's just can't catch a break.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate that Boeing is getting that kind of reputation. Some of it, I think, is deserved. Some of it may be, over the top. But the one thing that is very true about the Starliner is that it is many years delayed and it is over its budget. And I think Boeing has actually been taking the risk financially on it now, and it's been costing them quite a bit. So financially, it's a big issue for Boeing, but also reputation. This is a huge issue too. They need this to go right. It needs to go well. We obviously want to protect the astronauts themselves, but from a product standpoint, this actually has to work, and it has to work 100%. So, I think that's what we're seeing with the caution. I see that Ross has that comment about whether the valve needs replacing or not, and that is very true. Like I said, they could duplicate it and they figure out it is a hardware problem, or they may find out it was a sensor problem. That does come up as well. So, hopefully we'll get some word soon so we know.
What do you think about that comment from Elon saying we don't need another capsule? We need fully reusable rockets. I mean, his words have a lot of influence. He's very powerful. Obviously, he's well known for SpaceX, and SpaceX has, been shaking up the industry for years. But what do you think about that?
I think when Elon says something, obviously it gets a lot of attention, but I think that sometimes he has a different meaning, or maybe there's multiple meanings to what he has to say.
Right.
I personally don't take it as a shot of saying, the Starliner is horrible, scrap it. I think that's how some people are reading it. I think what he's looking at is saying that the idea of capsules themselves is something that needs to be put into the past. We need to start looking to the future, having reusable systems that provide a lot more capability, provide more functions than just what a capsule does. And that's the way I'm reading that particular comment. Now, it's on a post that has to do with the Starliner launching right now. So I think people will put that together. And as I said, sometime timing, maybe not the best time.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see, Eric's article come out and then Dr. Chris Combs say, why are you being so negative? And then Elon commenting, we don't need this capsule. And then Dr. Chris Combs saying, of course, this whole idea that
well, I've met Chris too, and sometimes he can be a little bit probing as well.
He can be a little negative. Yes. Well, let's have a quick pause to show you what I made yesterday.
Awesome.
It has to get venting here, so I just pressed the button. Hopefully it starts venting. But this is a 3D printed Falcon 9. If you guys missed the assembly yesterday, I did this live and it didn't take that long. I was rambling most of the time and I think it took less than an hour. So this is supposed to happen. So this is actually maneuverable like you would see the real thing. And so we have the crew access arm and, it rotates. And I think it's pretty well done. I don't know.
Hopefully the strong back raises it and then it doesn't go back down while it's launching.
Well, it stays, I mean, pretty good. I don't know why it's not doing the water thing though. So hopefully maybe it just needs to heat up. But
it's a valve issue.
I want to show that. Yeah, right. I want to show that off. And then yesterday I showed off the Lego shuttle. So now I'm a Lego fan. I had never done Legos as a kid ever. And now my boyfriend and I are looking at buying, some crazy Legos, 5,000 pieces, which is not a lot, or is way more than that one rather. So yeah. But so there's some of the Starliner drama. It got pretty heated on X yesterday. I was telling K10 that people woke up and chose violence yesterday on the internet. Although isn't that every day on the internet? And so
but it's just the space program is important to a lot of people. The Starliner has had its issues, so I can understand that. But right now we have a system that's trying to be launched. We have people that are going to be on the capsule. It's going to provide a function for our space program. So I hope that we can at least right now, cheer them on and hope that it works out well. And actually, I wanted to bring up something of sort of interest with the Starliner launch. We talked about the astronauts. I think it's Barry Wilmore, if I get it right, and of course Suni. And some people were asking if she was the first, or if she is the first female astronaut to be on the debut of a new system. And what do you think? Do you think she is?
Hmm.
Well, if you look at Mercury, it was Alan Shepard. So
I'm
no,
leaning toward yes.
kind of. And the answer is a little bit of a nuance. It depends on how you want to um,
Define system.
define that. And the reason why is that Wally Funk actually was on the New Shepard.
Hmm.
And she actually has quite a bit of history with the NASA program. She's an accomplished pilot herself. She was part of something called the Mercury 13, or at least colloquially called the Mercury 13, which was looking at women flying in space way back during the Mercury program. And unfortunately, it never actually came to pass, but she went through all of the training, all of the standards that that the astronauts did for the Mercury 7. And she was on the first New Shepard. So do you count that as she being the first, or do you think Suni here is the first?
Hmm. I think you're right. I think it's a little nuanced. You just reminded me that when I was growing up, my family had a lot of cats, and my mom worked in the aviation industry as an engineer, and so we named all of the cats. She had Orville and Wilbur,
Mm.
and then we had Sally, and then we had Wally for
Okay,
Wally Funk.
there you
So I grew up, not really understanding the significance as much, and that's just a
go.
fun little theme here.
Yeah,
Um,
well, the interesting thing is Wally was the youngest member of the Mercury 13, and up until William Shatner flew, she was the oldest person to fly to space.
wow, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I wanted to share another thing from yesterday because I'm
Okay.
telling you, I was like online and just the shade and the drama continued. So
Uh,
here's Lori Garver's page. And I haven't seen much of her. We know that she's the author of Escaping Gravity. This
mhm.
is her quest to transform NASA and launch a new space age. Really great book. So she has, a pretty important role in the space industry. And, and I was just surprised to see her kind of, um, you know, throwing shade. So here we have, the difference between SpaceX and Starliner transportation. And she says, sort of says it all, dot, dot, dot. Right. And so we have
Yeah.
the Model X with the doors, and then we have this van. And I was just surprised to see her like kind of sassy about this. Like, like obviously the transportation doesn't really matter that much, but it was just interesting. And then she also goes to say she actually defends it and says similar comparison can be made of their suits. Preferences may vary. SpaceX looks sleek, but she says it's reminiscent of Spaceballs. Boeing Space, more destination moon with practical pockets. Variety is the spice of life, and Godspeed to all. So I just thought that it was like, I think it's interesting to make the comparisons, but you know, uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's function, and then there's what they look like. Personally, this is just me. I like the SpaceX ones because it does look more modern.
yeah,
The blue ones um, look a little silly to me, but they all perform a certain function.
right.
The Boeing suits are interesting in the sense that the helmet zips on. It's kind of a semi solid kind of a fabric, I don't know, kind of thing. And you can see them kind of hanging off the back, whereas the space specs ones are that 3D printed version. It looks more like a helmet we would think would look like. But overall, yeah, I guess we're moving into the realm of space fashion now.
So yeah, I guess we're waiting until no earlier than May 10th. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and at least learned something, or maybe you can leave your perspective in the comments on what you think about Starliner. Are you feeling more negative or positive overall? And one last thing, if you've made it to the end of this video, check out this venting Falcon 9. This is a 3D printed humidifier from Stardesk, and you can assemble this yourself. I assembled it yesterday. look at the quality of it. Here we have the crew access arm, which swings out so that you can actually move the Falcon 9 up and down. And I just think that this is a really awesome design. They've really outdone themselves here. We have an SLS. We also have a Starship, which many of you have bought, purchased for your own office or maybe as a gift. But this one I actually think is my favorite of the three. I just think it's really well done, and I love the moving parts on this design. So if you're interested in this, I will leave the link in the comments, and just know that if you do decide to get one of these, I get a small portion of those sales. And also, if you have a 3D printer and you want to print it yourself, it's going to be cheaper, but you can also just buy the digital files. So thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Ellie in Space. And until then, I'll see you soon.